Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is the 14th of July 2022. These are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with a report that has been launched by the United Nations that talks about population surge or population explosion in Pakistan. Nothing new there. We've talked about in the past as well. There have been other reports. But this UN report says that Pakistan is expected to see a 56% increase in population by the year 2050. It also says that the global population, which stands currently at 7.7 billion, is going to reach 8 billion by the end of 2022. How should Pakistan get itself ready for this surge in population? What measures needs to be taken by Pakistan in order to curb this spread of population? We are going to talk about this in our very first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns something that is related a bit to population, nevertheless on society: gender parity. Pakistan, as per a report by the World Economic Forum, is the second worst country in the world in terms of gender parity. It ranks 145 out of 146 countries in this global gender gap index report that was released by the World Economic Forum on Wednesday. The top 5 worst countries are Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan and Chad. Let's talk about our next story that we're going to be discussing, and that concerns Joe Biden. He has pledged to keep Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, otherwise known as the IRGC, on the US terrorism list, even if it leads to scrapping up or the demise of the nuclear deal, that is the JCPOA with Iran. What does this mean as far as the future of JCPOA is concerned, and how does that bode also for relations between the US and Iran? We'll be talking about this in our third story. And our final story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns students from the Ghulam Ishaq Khan Institute of Engineering, Sciences and Technology, otherwise known as GKI, who have bagged the first position in the Formula Student Engineering competition that was recently held in the United Kingdom. In the month of May, also in the US, there was another competition in which Pakistan students grabbed the top honors. This is going to be our last story. Let's come to our first story, our first segment, and that concerns the population explosion in Pakistan, that, as per a United Nations report, is going to increase by 56% by the year 2050. More in the following report.
Pakistan is one of the most populated countries in the world, and exponential population growth in Pakistan is among one of the serious challenges which the country faces today. A report by the United Nations suggests that the global population could surpass 9.7 billion in 2050, with half of the projected increase concentrated in 8 countries, including Pakistan. The United Nations report, titled World Population Prospects 2022, also projected that Pakistan is expected to see a 56% increase in its population to 366 million individuals by 2050. The COVID-19 pandemic has had an effect on the population change, as global life expectancy at birth fell to 71 years in 2021, down from 72.9 in 2019. And in some countries, successive waves of the pandemic have produced short-term reduction in numbers of pregnancies and births. Pakistan's alarming population growth rate of 2.4% per annum, which translates to between 4 million and 5 million children being added to the total each year, is no less than the existential threat. At 230 million people, Pakistan is the 5th most populous nation in the world, on track to balloon to around 300 million by 2030. Population pressures also leave us much more vulnerable to international developments such as conflict and global supply chains disruption, so it's important to foster population planning and to roadmap to avoid social unrest.
Hamid Khalid Al-Mushriki, senior analyst, joins us online. Hamid, thank you very much to have joined us. Hamid, when we talk of population explosion, there are so many factors that are associated with it, whether it be economic issues, less food to go around, less potable water, higher demands on our social system, and of course, on the positive side, more voters for our next elections. Nevertheless, Pakistan is going to be scrambling for a lot of issues in the years to come if the population rate continues to move forward as it is going forward. What measures need to be taken by the government in your point of view?
Thank you very much, Umar. I mean, when you talk about the factors of increasing the population, we have to consider one more factor, which is Pakistan is the biggest, country who is taking care of the refugees, and we've been taking care of 6 million. And it looks like it's going to increase as well. So this is another factor of increasing in the population. Secondly, it is undoubtedly the situation is very alarming, and it is all sectors of the society they have to come together to take actions against population increase, especially, we have to involve our religious clerics more. We have to educate our, families and our female more in the urban areas and then the rural areas, most importantly, because of lack of education, lack of understanding of, I would say the intensity of increasing the population causes a lot of problems. And undoubtedly, Pakistan could not do the measures which they had targeted in the year 2008. Then they had another plan which was included in 2014 National Action Plan, that Pakistan will take measures to take the population in control. But
that is true. Hamid, we'll be continuing with our discussion, but we have to go to a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. I'm your host, Hamid, and you're watching the issue, the segment on population explosion as per a United Nations report that talks about 56% increase in population in Pakistan by that year. Hamid Khal and Mishriki joins us online again. Hamid, we were talking about the population explosion. And of course, in 1990, there was a report that said that Pakistan's population is going to increase manifold in 2015. In fact, in the end of July 2015, the United Nations took out another report that also talked about the year 2050 and that Pakistan's population was to exceed 300 million by that year. Hamid joins us online. Hamid, population explosion, Pakistan, measures that need to be taken.
Yes, measures are always, government has to take much more stronger steps, and the government have to involve, all segments of the society, especially I would say the clerics, the female, the youth, and then there has to be a campaign properly to give them the awareness and tell them how important it is to reduce and control the population for the survival of the country, because this is one of the biggest threats to Pakistan, the increasing population. And I'll tell you, it is, if you look into that report of United Nations, this is the problem with the phenomena with the entire subcontinent. India is going to cross China in next 2 years. In terms of population, India will be the most populated country in the world. So this is the problem where there is less education, awareness with the people. These are the prices nations has to pay. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, the government has to take it very seriously. And unfortunately,
but Hamid, not only Pakistan, there is Afghanistan, there is Chad, there is the Democratic Republic of Congo that are also included in the most populated countries. Now, Africa is also there, so is our subcontinent. When you look at the different effects, that the increase in population is going to have, that Pakistan is also witnessing to some extent, but other countries are witnessing to a large extent. That means less food to go around. We already know that there is a huge issue as far as food insecurity is concerned in Afghanistan because of the issues. Less potable water. We know of the water crisis across the world, and Pakistan has also seen that higher demands on our social system to sustain the people and the public and this higher population. In this whole scenario, whose responsibility is it to help the people or the population, or to stop this huge bulge in population?
Umar, I like you to remind that SARC was made on the basis of one of these. This was on its agenda. That they will work together to control the population in this region. But unfortunately, organization like SARC could not work properly because of India's hegemonic behavior and India's behavior towards so many matters in the region. So, ideally, all the countries has to come together to find a solution for that. But individually, Pakistan government, Pakistani NGOs, Pakistan social society, Pakistan's media, Pakistan's educated class, they have to give the education to the rural areas, to the urban areas, because in Pakistan it has to be dealt as on the religious matters as well, on the religious aspect as well. People need to understand that there is no harm or there is no obligation from Islam to do the family planning. That is another aspect which needs to be explained in so many rural areas of Pakistan where
That is so true.
they think
But
that
you know,
it matters.
Hamid, you talked about the urban and rural areas. I'd like to also understand your point of view on the urbanization and the impact that is going to have on the pressure on the government and all the public sector as far as the bulge in population is concerned. All the population is going to concentrate itself more in the urban areas rather than in the rural areas, and we've seen that in the Western countries as well. We've seen that in Australia as well. How can the government deal with this?
There are 2-3 solutions for it, and one of them is to provide the maximum facilities in the rural areas that people would not prefer to move in the urban areas. Let's develop a small scale cities with closer to the rural areas rather than letting the bigger cities expand and expand and expand, which we have seen in terms of Karachi, Lahore, Faisalabad, Islamabad. These are the cities are expanding. I mean, we lived in Islamabad, and Islamabad was such a lovely city, never had any problem with the traffic or anything. And now we see havoc on the road sometimes. So it was never supposed to happen in cities like Islamabad even. So that is a core issue that government has to develop the programs where they can give the facilities of the urban areas nearer to the rural areas, and they have to develop the new cities, small scale cities, rather than putting the pressure on the bigger cities and making urbanization as a biggest problem for the country, because this is what so many other countries have done. We have the example of Arab countries. We have seen the example. I mean, there are other examples, and they have managed to control their population in this way. But that is very important to control urbanization, very important to give the education. On top of it, as far as the
healthcare, education, you talked about education, to proper education to people in the rural, especially the rural areas, so that they understand the concept of population and the population bulge, but also healthcare. Healthcare is so important, whether it be as far as family planning is concerned, or to the women who are of course getting pregnant more or less every year, especially in the rural areas.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, because that's what I'm saying. They need to be made aware about the family planning. They need to understand that there is no harm in doing the family planning, and Islam does not have any obligation or does not stop you to do the family planning. And there has to be more open discussion about it. Look, Europe has controlled this matter a lot because of their openness and open discussion about it. Unfortunately, in our rural areas, it is like a prohibited topic of discussion. It is like a no-go area. They do not talk in front of their kids. They do not talk within their with their elders or with the family members. So as long as they will be able to discuss this within their family, as long as they will be able to accept it as a social problem, and they have to understand that, I mean, it is nevertheless going to benefit their own self. It is going to help.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to benefit the people of Pakistan, every single man, woman and child in Pakistan, if the necessary measures are taken, and an understanding of these measures is also, properly put into, is properly implemented and understood by the people, so that they can follow the rules and regulations and control this population bulge and also work together as one. Thank you very much, Hamid Khan Al-Mashriki, to have joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, the population in the world continues to grow, so does in Pakistan. There is still time to prepare. If we get our priorities right, we can be on the right side of history. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Pakistan also, and it is the second worst country as far as gender parity is concerned, ranking 145 out of 146 countries. More in the following report.
Gender equality today is crucial for a sustainable tomorrow, as the role women can play and the impact women's empowerment can produce to attain economic, social and environmental sustainability is monumental. Pakistan has been ranked as the second worst country in terms of gender parity, placed 145 out of 146 states in the latest Global Gender Gap report released by the World Economic Forum. The report ranks 146 countries, out of which top 5 are Iceland, Finland, Norway, New Zealand and Sweden, while the 5 worst ones are Afghanistan, Pakistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iran and Chad. The report stated that Pakistan has closed 56.4% of the gender gap in 2022, the highest overall level of parity the country has posted since the report launched in 2006. Pakistan is the country where women have the smallest share of senior, managerial and legislative roles at a mere 4.5%, according to the report. World Economic Forum Managing Director Sadia Zehdi, while commenting on the report, said, "The cost of the living crisis is impacting women disproportionately. After the shock of the labor market losses during the pandemic and the continued inadequacy of care infrastructure, the dream of a sustainable tomorrow can only be realized when we broaden our horizons and reorient our compass towards gender equality."
Aishah Masood, human rights activist, joins us online. Aishah, thank you very much to have joined us. Aishah, gender parity, nothing new as far as the subcontinent is concerned. Also Pakistan, India, or Afghanistan or Sri Lanka. Afghanistan and Pakistan both are amongst the worst countries as far as gender parity is concerned. So is the Democratic Republic of Congo. What are the major reasons behind it in your point of view?
For having me on this show. First of all, it's a very sad news to see Pakistan yet again at a lower bottom of this gender disparity index. And as we know that the main reason behind this, we are just right up of Afghanistan, and the main reason behind it are many. So we can divide these among 4 subcategories of indexes. We can divide them in economic, social, political, health and education. So if we see that the situation of Pakistan in terms of women education has been very bad. Almost, if we compare, 23 million children are out of school in Pakistan. So which makes the more and more girl child, if we compare it as in each 100 child, from 100 children, male boys, 97 or 86% of women children are not in schools. They are out of schools in primary and basic levels. So why the index level is so low for Pakistan? The reasons are so many. We have seen in the report that Pakistan has shown slight improvement from the last year, from the last report, but still we are very, very much behind in terms of economic opportunities, participation, global incorporation of women in day-to-day formal sector of economic, inclusion of women in the formal sector.
All right. Now, Aishah, in all of this, I'd like to also give you some numbers. You talked about, women in education, girl children, and how they are do not have as much access to education as the boys. The country ranks, as per the report, 145th on economic participation and opportunity, 143rd on health and survival, 135th on educational attainment, that is what you talked about, and 95 on political participation. We've talked about educational attainment. What about economic participation and opportunity?
So basically, I think the major reason of women that we are not a part of the formal sector of economics. The women majorly are not working in Pakistan. They are dependent on male breadwinners, and the women who are working in the informal sector. Their economic income is not accounted for in the GDP. So this is one of the major issues. They are unskilled. They don't have any protected rights among their working rights are not there. So I think a major chunk of women are suppressed and are not a part of the day-to-day economic.
But Aishah, I'd like to point out here that in this rural sector, it's the women folk that work the most, and it's the men folk who do almost nothing. And I've been witness to it, especially in the Sindh areas, where in the interior of Sindh, it's the women who do all the hard work.
Yes, I would like to say that yes, women do work a lot more as compared to men in different rural areas and obviously in other parts of Pakistan as well. But their income is not incorporated. They work in informal sector. So I need to highlight that the informal sector is not including women and are not giving women protection and basic rights of working. So when we talk about women in informal sector, there are a huge chunk of women who are working in informal sector, and their work is not incorporated in the economy or the system of Pakistan.
Aishah, is this related to a certain mindset that people in our subcontinent have had since generations?
Yes. So this is a gender roles. I would like to talk about gender roles and norms here because there are preset gender roles and norms in our society, and especially South Asia. We can see this report is an example that South Asia falls below, very very below in gender disparity index. Why? Because we have set up our women in such a way, we have raised our women in such a way that we do not encourage them to do work. We do not encourage them to be a part of a healthy lifestyle. We do not provide them with educational opportunities. So this is what will lead to no political empowerment, no education. Yes, and especially I would like to talk about the health and survival of women. So in Pakistan, the reproductive health, the health of women falls behind because of this whole cultural dynamics that we have in this area and subcontinent, especially.
All right, now you talked about health, and we talked about empowerment, we talked about survival, and we talked about political empowerment. Now, political empowerment is also something that I'd like to highlight because we've had the first Muslim woman Prime Minister in the entire world, that was Benazir Bhutto Sahiba. We've had the first woman Speaker of the National Assembly as well. Nevertheless, there is a certain lack as far as political empowerment is concerned. And I think political empowerment, education and economic opportunities are all more or less interlinked. Whose responsibility is it to empower the women?
So yes, you're very right that these are all interlinked. When a girl child will get education, she will have the opportunity from her house. The norms will change, and then she will become a leader, and then she can change the mindset of other people as well. So yes, these are all interlinked. So I think it needs to be done in both ways. So one is a policy level change that I see in short term and in long term as well. A short term policy level change that changes that actually provides women with basic sustainable basic necessities, and the long term change that policy level change that actually provides women and empowers them throughout this journey. And I think the policy level change can be brought up by not just the ruling parties and not just by the government side, but also individual parental basis in the schools, in very day-to-day lives. We can change the perception of how we see women and how we can.
Where is the perception easier to change, in the rural areas or in the urban areas?
Of course, it's very hard to change in the rural areas because the mindset is very much, incorporated over the years, and it cannot be, changed overnight. But when we talk about the city lives and the city areas, they are obviously having more opportunities to work, and the policies that can be implemented can then be shifted towards the rural areas. But I think it should be starting from the cities. We need to incorporate women. We can talk about them being safe on different traveling platforms, them being safe in the workplace, them being safe in hospitals, them having access to basic level of education and health facilities.
Aishah, we talked about mindset, but there's also a general mindset even amongst the most literate of people, and I've seen that firsthand, of given a certain preference to the male gender rather than to the female gender when it comes to big posts, when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to balancing certain lifestyles. There is a certain tilt towards the male gender. How long, in your point of view, will it take for a country like Pakistan to change that attitude?
Well, when I think about this attitude, I get very hopeless because it seems like this has been there for a very long time, and this not in near future. I don't see this changing, but yes, we have seen movements that are emerged out of this suppression. We have seen movements in women and activists that talk about women's rights, and they are talking about changing this gender misperception and norms against women. So I think there's a huge chunk of misunderstanding and preconceived stigmas attached to women, that what women can do, what general role they can have. So it starts from a household. I have to say that in simple words, that it starts from a household, from simple parenting. When a parent says that a girl child cannot do this and she can do that only, and a male child is being more preferred than a female child, it starts from right there. There you are telling a girl child that she is unable to do that, and there you are telling a male child that he is above that girl child. So I think
that is so true, Aishah. And
Yeah.
as you said, I would really like the parents, all those parents who are listening, to start making that change right now, from right now, and all those teachers as well who are teaching
Yes.
the children in different educational institutions from the primary to the secondary, to also inculcate that in their manner of teaching, so as to give equal parity to the females and to the males. That is how society develops, and that is how a nation strengthens itself. Thank you very much, Aishah Masood,
you
human
so
rights activist, to have joined us and to have talked to us about this report by the World Economic Forum that talks about Pakistan really ranking in the lowest of lows as far as gender parity is concerned. The change can come, and it can come right now if we make a collective decision. Let's come to our last three stories. The first story concerns the US, that is willing to kill the JCPOA or the Iran nuclear deal to keep the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is Iran's party, on the US terrorism list. Now, this was while Joe Biden was talking to an Israeli channel, that was a channel 12. This was pre-taped in Washington on Wednesday during the first day of his visit to the Middle East. When he was asked, are you committed to keep the IRGC on the foreign terrorist organization list, even if that means that it kills the deal? He did answer with a simple yes. What does that mean as far as the US-Iran relations or JCPOA is concerned? We know that Joe Biden wants to reinvigorate the JCPOA, but will it be at the cost of the IRGC? Will it continue to be delayed for one reason or the other? Only time will tell. Nevertheless, a lot of hope still remains as far as the future of the JCPOA is concerned. Our next story concerns Pakistani students from Ghulam Ishaq Khan Institute of Engineering, Sciences and Technology that have bagged the first position on the Formula Student Engineering competition that was very recently held in the United Kingdom. The Formula Student is Europe's most established educational engineering competition. The GK team won the concept class lap time simulation for the virtual software that they created by defeating students from 34 different countries. Now, Ashir Junaid, who was a team leader, he said that their 24-member society developed the software within a period of 24 months. And of course, he said, we are proud of making Pakistan famous all over the world. In May this year as well, two students of the Pak Turk Marif International Schools and Colleges won a top award of an international science event in the United States of America as well. So of course, our students are extremely bright, and they show it by participating in these events and getting top laurels. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we'll end with a very sad news of a colleague of ours, of a colleague that I've known personally for a very long time, somebody who I call a gem of a person, somebody who was extremely professional, and I mean, we never had any complaint from him. He passed away today of a protracted hepatic illness, and of course his last rites will be performed in Rawalpindi 1256B satellite town. Mr. TAUSIF-UR-REHMAN, senior news editor, PTV World, was somebody who was associated with the journalism and the journalistic field for more than 3 decades. He has worked for Daily Dawn amongst other organizations, and he was associated with PTV World since its inception in January of 2013. He has always shown extreme professionalism as far as his conduct is concerned, whether it be news stories, whether it be his contribution as a senior news editor. We wish him all the best in the next world, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay tuned, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.